Welcome to Social JumpStart, the cable television program about social media. I'm Mike Wolpert, and our guest this week is Suzanna Stinnett, book author, blogger, and founder of the Bay Area Bloggers Society. Welcome, Suzanna.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here.
Thanks. Awesome. Tell me a little bit about how you got started. You're an author, and you got early in, you got the bug for blogging. How did that work? What did that mean?
Well, I was writing a book that is now published as Little Shifts about 2000. And that was the time when I was online and I started to see the new thing called blogging, weblogs. What in the world is that? And what I thought in the beginning was, this is going to be the opportunity for writers to put themselves out there on their own in a way that we've never done before. So it has taken about 10 years for that to gel into a reality, but we do now have a robust system that writers, authors, business people can use, entrepreneurs can use to get the word out about what they're doing, and also to publish books now with Amazon and Kindle, certainly as the king of the ebook world.
Right.
We're in a whole different place.
But it didn't start out this easy, did it? I mean, 10 years ago, it was a little bit of a bleaker landscape.
Right. As for me in particular, I was not a tech person. I wasn't that fond of computers. I actually still do some of my work on a manual typewriter.
Stop it.
I do. Poetry. And but it was very compelling to me. So I started working my way along with the clunky tools that we had then to try to have a blog. And I was writing and working on my books, and over the years, through various levels of agony, I did manage to enter the blogging universe. I think I had my first blog maybe 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really learned in that process was writing is isolating, but blogging is even more so. And if you also don't understand the technology and you're having trouble with that, you're really stuck. And I wanted to see more people on the playground, as I call it. So I started Bay Area Bloggers Society to address that need about 4 years ago.
So the group, Bay Area Bloggers Society, is about connecting bloggers in real life to help support each other and learn.
Right.
Because the technology is pretty easy now, I suppose.
I think the technology is easy, but it's interesting how difficult it is for people to get to that point where they can actually push the buttons. There's still a great fear of computers. Mm-hmm. And so I have worked with people all across the spectrum. I do have people who are very comfortable with computers, but their discomfort level is that word publish. So when you push the publish button, on WordPress or Blogger, either of those great simple tools that we have, some people are really frozen at that point. So I also work a lot with the content, and that's really become the center of my work today, is the e-publishing into blogs and into books. What do people say when they get to that point? They can use the tools, but what are they actually saying, and how do they know what to say?
And how do they know what to say? Because a lot of people, business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs, a lot of the huge companies are failing at social media. They might have 5 million fans on Facebook, but that's not really social media. But I see a lot of small business owners, authors, of course, would be a small business owner, really succeeding because they're really connecting with people in social media. But it's that beginning to create content that you're really focused on for yourself, for helping others. Can you talk a little bit about, well, I guess I'd like you to talk a little bit about just how easy it is, really.
Well, in terms of how easy it is, at this point, now that I have been in it for a long time, WordPress and Blogger and a few other simple blogging tools, it's ridiculous how easy they are. It takes 2 or 3 minutes to create a blog, and you're there. You have a blog that you can use. But what people really need to focus on, people can get help. They can come to a B.A.B.S meeting, or they can visit you, to learn more about the simple tools. But what they need to focus on is a story that can be shared. And it doesn't matter if you are an author, an entrepreneur, or a small business person. You have to have a story that engages people that they want to go out and tell others about. That's the point where you have just engaged that exponential universe that everybody talks about, how you can reach everybody, but you've got to reach them with something.
So if the premise of social media is built around the idea of, hey, check this out, you want to give people something, you want to feed them something to say, hey, check this out. So an author, of course, is great at writing. Are they actually going to share perhaps pieces or chunks of their book, but they can also share other things about the process?
Oh, sure. I think that authors' lives are very interesting to readers.
Yeah.
Biographies are very popular. I mean, that's one way you can tell that people want to know about how people are running their lives. So authors really have an edge. And what I'm seeing now, I recently realized, authors are building these platforms. There are people who go out and serve authors to help them build their marketing platforms. And if you look at what authors are doing now that they're starting to have viable, clear success with these platforms, they're doing two things. They're engaging their audience as, hi, I'm the author of, and I got up this morning and I had to take my dog to the vet. The readers are there. They want to know what's going on in their lives.
Making a real and deeper personal connection.
Sure.
Because if you're an author, and if I'm reading your book, there's a real kind of personal investment, but not exactly. But if I start to learn a little bit what you're willing to share, if I start to learn what you're willing to share about your personal life, that makes me, I guess, part of your team.
Absolutely. You belong. And that's a key element in social media, is to create a place that people can come to and feel like they belong. They're invested then, and you can turn a customer into a supporter. There's a very big difference there when a customer is invested in your success, and they are going to bring their family and friends along, and they are going to build your community for you.
Right. If we were talking about small business or retail business or professional practice, we'd really talk more about brand evangelists doing that in the world of social media, where they're going to essentially vouch for you. Right. And so for authors and writers, same thing. This is good. This is a good read. I think it makes perfect sense.
Right. Entrepreneurs have a little bit different kind of magnetism. They create curious people that come with curiosity. They're interested in, what is this entrepreneur doing? Are they going to be able to pull it off? Entrepreneurs have a lot of explaining to do about what it is that they're creating. They're often coming up with new words, and so they have to do a lot of educating. But the compelling part is that if they can present their story, actively present their story, and allow people to feed in, lots of people want to feel like they contributed to that project. That's some of my intelligence is in there. So when an entrepreneur can provide that interface and interact in a real way, well, everything blew up today. We're taking the day off and going to the beach. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a positive story.
Right.
Then that's how they create that warmth and interaction that makes people want to share. Look what I'm part of here.
Right. And by giving people a real inside look, you have to be real and transparent and authentic. And by allowing people into your universe, you are making them part of your universe. So that connection then allows people to share it forward, bring people in. Could entrepreneurs and small business people, not could they, how could they best benefit from the author example? I mean, can you talk a little bit about ebooks and the process and how that really enables people to market themselves?
Yes, I think it all goes back to creating a story that can be shared. And when you come to the small business person, they have maybe the hardest job because their business may produce a product that doesn't have a very exciting story to it. So in that case, what they need to look at is, what are they doing that's engaging? And for maybe a little bit bigger business, for example, a solar company or something, well, great, they're producing some kind of element for the solar world, not a particularly interesting story. But what they can do is they can create their own place in the community where they're giving back, or they've created a little arm of the company that does something with a children's group or something like that. That is, it's a win-win. They're building up their community, and now they have a story that they can share if their product doesn't create its own kind of exciting story.
And somebody could have a business or a product that lends itself to it. I could show you the manufacturing process or what goes on behind the scenes and that kind of thing. But some people might be in a business that doesn't really lend itself to that. They could then talk about why they do what they do and what they get out of it and what drives their passion.
Right. And they can also, if they have some aspect where they're trying to do better in the world, where they are trying, say, to be more sustainable or reduce their footprint, or there's something like that that gives their company more meat, really. And those are competitive edges. So those are good things to talk about, and they're also, to me, a good example of how social media is driving us toward a better world, because it's prompting us to think about how we are in the world. How can we be better in the world? And then we can tell people about that.
Because with the right use of blogging, distributed and through social media, through the contacts we build, by telling our story, people are more likely to want to do business with us. And if we all did business with each other, instead of buying junk from monolithic international companies, if we cared a little bit more to buy a little bit more from each other, we could, in fact, turn the whole economy around, couldn't we?
I think so. I think that this time and social media favors small businesses. It's very difficult, as you said, for a huge business, 5 million followers on Facebook, that's actually not social media. I think that's a very good point.
Right.
So the difficulty that these big corporations have is that there is not a person, even if you think corporations are people, there's not a person there.
Right.
There's nothing to engage, and it's very difficult to write a story that says we care and we're doing this for the community when you are so removed because of your size from any particular community of people. So I think it's an exciting time for small businesses, a brilliant time for entrepreneurs, and I would say about time for writers in social media. Yeah.
That's great. So entrepreneurs and small business people who feel that they have more to share beyond the snippets, beyond the blog posts. The process of writing an ebook is somehow, or even a self-published book, which can help tell their story. That can be kind of daunting. But you're an author. It's not really going into a room with a typewriter and a ream of paper and out it comes, is it?
No, it really isn't. And it depends on, I'm working on a fiction project now, so I definitely need to cloister myself for periods of time to write. Everybody has a different way of going about producing that material. But I think that we have opportunities now to, for example, you could do a book that has interviews in it and go back and forth between interviewing people in your industry and talking about what you do. People who have clients can certainly talk about case studies. People are very interested in case studies.
Right.
You can also use your blog to build up a collection over a period of time and look at it deliberately as this is going to be a book. So you can go back and take all of those entries that you've put in your blog and turn that into a book. That's a popular thing that people are doing now, and I think it can work very well.
Sure. So somebody who's an expert in their field who's writing a blog could interview other people that are in the industry, giving credibility and credence to what they're talking about, sharing ideas with other people, getting ideas from whoever they're interviewing them.
Right.
And then that becomes a blog post, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And they might weave some video blog posts into that as well.
Sure. Now, when you get into the video, of course, if you're going to convert it to an ebook, you have to think about how that material is going to come forward. We're close to the point where you can use multimedia, and you have all these different things that you can choose from to put into a book, say, that's going to be on the iPad. It can be interactive. It can have video is a great way to go. But I don't think we're quite to the point where that's seamless. It's still rather experimental to do that part of it. But for ebooks, too, it's good to remember that they can be quite short. We don't need long books anymore.
10 pages, 20 pages.
30 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 is a good length where people are going to be looking at them. A lot of people actually are reading on their smartphones. I've been surprised to learn that people enjoy having it right in the palm of their hand. While you have the beautiful iPad with all of its advantages, but people then revert back to their phones because it's always in their pocket, and if they're reading a story, they can just find their place and keep going no matter where they are. So you really want to be thinking about the delivery of the ebook, the delivery of your content now in these very simplified forms that can go into all the different readers and into mobile. That's an important aspect of creating your content.
And let's talk a little bit about the content and how it lives, if you will, on your blog, kind of your home on the internet, and the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Tagged. All these social media platforms are for making connections, but really the juice of it, where you get to really tell your story, that really happens at your blog, doesn't it?
It does. And I do, when I work with people who are just starting out and they don't really have an online presence, maybe they are on Facebook and they say, can I just use Facebook as my blog? I don't really need to do all this other stuff. You know, people are really intimidated by the amount of work involved. But I steer people toward a simple blog. Maybe they're going to post once a month. Just something to get started so that there is a core little world that they own.
Right.
You don't own your Facebook world. And you can't really dictate the experience of your reader the way you can on your blog. So I think that the blog, when I started out with Bay Area Bloggers Society, I thought about, what does this need to be? I want to have a place where people can come learn the technology and meet each other in their communities. And I settled on Blogger Society because I saw blogs as the core, where we were going in the future. I call it your front porch. You decorate it. You bring out the furniture, and you can change that when you want to. And it's the place where you can invite people to come see what you're doing. And from there, they can go to the other, they may come from the social media to get to your blog, certainly.
Sure.
And you can send them back out to these different places. But there is a comfort, I think, when someone has a nice-looking blog that has consistent content on it, and readers know that they can go there. That's what they're going to bookmark.
So our viewers who would want to join, be a part of, learn some more about this, how can they find B.A.B.S or Bay Area Bloggers Society?
The best
how can
place,
they find you? The
best place is to go to meetup.com.
Okay.
And /B.A.B Society. That's where it is on Meetup.
Great.
Another easy place to get to is epubclubs.com. They can find everything there. And then on Twitter, for people who are active on Twitter and like to go to Twitter chats, every Friday from 3 to 5, I do ePub chat there on Twitter.
Busy.
Yeah, so we share a lot. It's a lot of fun.
And you find meeting with people online and then meeting with those online friends in real life or offline. It's a lot more porous, a lot more transparent, a lot more dare I say, normal than maybe it once
was? I think
was?
normal is a good word for it. I think meeting in person does help us normalize the technology. I know in B.A.B.S meetings, I've seen people have that experience where they've learned about something, they've studied it, they've looked at it online, people have told them, but when they come and sit in a group of people and bounce the ideas off each other, they have that aha moment where it's like, oh, now I understand why I need to do this kind of blog or what a category is or how the experience is for the readers who come to my blog.
Right.
So I think the aha moments happen a lot more in person than they do online.
Aha. Mm-hmm. So they do. So for somebody who is pre-aha moment, that's watching the show tonight, that's thinking, I know it's a good idea. How simple is it today? Can you give a few tips on where to go, what to do? You talked about WordPress. For the real novice who just wants the basics, how would they get started?
I'm a little split on that topic because I've been a WordPress person for a long time. I think that WordPress offers quite a world at your fingertips there. The learning curve is pretty short. But Blogger, which is owned by Google, may be even easier. So I kind of look at what people are wanting to do, and right now I'm sending more people to Blogger. For one reason, too, is that because Google does things for its search engine, when you're in Blogger, you're just able to get recognized more easily in some ways. Not that a Blogspot account, it's just the little confusion there when people go on Blogger, they end up with a blogspot.com account. Mm-hmm. Not that it necessarily gets higher search engine ranking than WordPress per se, but you just have ready access. Google also owns YouTube, so the connections are more seamless. On Blogger, you want to bring video in, things like that. It's more just click, right, and you've got your blog set up. So I would recommend that. I think there's also a strength in having a Gmail account, which you're required to do to use Blogger.
Sure.
You want to run that off your Gmail account. And now we have Google Plus coming into the picture, which is another fairly seamless way to put a post and link it to your blog so that people can go find things. High search engine ranking there too.
Right.
So I try not to have people be too concerned about how they're being found on the internet because I think that their content is what's really going to nail their discoverability, I would call it.
Okay.
So mostly I would send people to Blogger and tell them to take a deep breath if they're afraid of the technology, and also to take a lot of breaks. I mean, this is a very human experience that people have of going too far with it, getting frustrated. Maybe they just have a slow internet connection that day. And so it's easy to become so frustrated that you don't want to go back to it.
And so people who are just getting started, they might not understand how easy the writing part will become as they begin to get into it. But a blog post really isn't, we mentioned a 30-page ebook. That's not a blog post.
That's not.
A blog post can be even a photograph and a caption. It could be a paragraph, some random thoughts. It takes many forms. Isn't that right?
It really does. It's a very beautiful form. It's an art form, really. And I think that a mistake people make is trying to be too PhD with their blog posts. I have looked at a blog just a couple days ago that someone directed me to. He said, I have all this information on my blog. So I went and took a look, and what I found were blog posts that were the length of short stories.
Aha.
So we're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and reading and not really getting to the point or to a call to action for the reader. So short is almost always better.
So if you want to write short stories, go write short stories.
Publish those on Kindle.
You can publish those on Kindle.
Right.
Got it. But if a blog post doesn't have to be anything more complicated in the beginning than a picture of your staff.
Sure.
Or even better, your customers.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
And a little bit about what they do, who they are, how they connect with your business and how much you appreciate them. That's kind of sets a tone, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And then using the social networks to meet people, greet people, bring them in, make those connections, but really decorating your front porch,
sure,
as you said, is really what people ought to kind of keep in mind. As important these days, I think, as the actual front porch of their business is their digital presence.
I agree. And if you think of it in terms of that warm greeting kind of thing, and really keep your focus on your viewer, on your customer, your reader, the person who's going to participate in your project, keep your focus on them.
Right.
And it's much easier to make decisions. What is their experience? I think people tend to start out trying to present themselves. This needs to look like me. I want people to know who I am. It's a very natural place to start.
Sure.
But it's much more effective to think of who they are. How do they feel when they come here? What can I have on my front porch that's really attractive to my reader and to my audience?
So rather than trying to polish up your image, it would make sense for a business owner, entrepreneur to think of the questions that they get asked most. How do you do that? And if you start to answer those questions on your blog, then it really becomes more about them, more about the reader, the customer, the prospect, than it does about you. You may say, this is how I do it. But that's a good way for people to get started. If you were just getting started, you're working with somebody who has all the good intentions, but they're blanking on what to write about. Is it fair to ask them to make a little list and say, here are the 10 questions I get most often?
Oh, that's a great tactic.
Well, let's leave it on a great tactic.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed our time together. Suzanna Stinnett is a blogger, but an author, a book author, the founder of the Bay Area Bloggers Society, and really a good time today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Really appreciate it.
It was fun.
This has been another episode of Social JumpStart, the television show about social media. We'll see you next time, live from the tag.com studios. Thanks.